Hollow Knight, and its sequel for many of us, was an insane journey. They set an incredibly high bar for the Metroidvania genre, combining technical and demanding combat with a vast world, full of secrets and an atmosphere that few can replicate. But what happens when the journey ends? After dozens of hours exploring Hallownest, defeating bosses, and discovering every mystery, there's that feeling of emptiness. That desire to find another experience that captures, even partially, what made Hollow Knight so memorable. If you're on that quest, this video is for you. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is that kind of game that seems to have been made for those who dove headfirst into the universe of Hollow Knight and came out, wanting more of that feeling of an intense and emotional journey through the far reaches of a strange world. Right away, you can feel the weight of the magical and delicate atmosphere that only Ori can deliver. The scenery lives, breathes, and sucks you into a decaying forest, simultaneously beautiful and melancholic, where every corner has a story and a secret waiting to be discovered. In terms of feelings, it stands out for the harmony between art, soundtrack, and silent narrative, which makes any Metroidvania lover feel at home. On a personal note, it always fascinated me how Ori goes beyond the genre basics by betting heavily on fluid and acrobatic mobility. Movement in Ori is so satisfying, fast, and inventive that it's a pleasure just to experiment with jumps, bashes, and dashes. It's something that makes the simple act of exploring genuinely interesting all the time. I felt that, unlike Hollow Knight, which values almost surgical precision in its challenges, Ori favors a more agile, almost poetic pace, mixing stylish combat with challenging platforming without ever losing the beauty of organized chaos. Comparing it to Hollow Knight, they both share the Metroidvania DNA. Gigantic maps, secret areas, and that power progression that turns old obstacles into mere new steps. However, Ori has the edge in the visual dazzle factor, and mixes this with a soundtrack that always makes your heart beat faster during the plot's key moments. Something that particularly got me was realizing how the boss design functions less as impossible battles and more as grand events, almost choreographed, integrating escape and chase sequences that, honestly, don't always have the same impact as the tense boss fights in Hollow Knight, but they compensate by offering moments of pure adrenaline, those where every correct jump feels like a personal victory. Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist is one of those Metroidvania games that honestly surprised me by going beyond expectations, especially if you're a fan of Hollow Knight and feel that urge to get lost in mysterious worlds and highly detailed settings. The atmosphere is, without exaggeration, mesmerizing. Every step through the mist, every ruin filled with melancholic piano paints a dark and delicate universe, where beauty arises from despair and everything seems to have a story to tell. The fact that it's accessible, without being overly punitive, already places Ender Magnolia at the top of recommendations for those looking for an alternative to the constant tension of Hallownest. With each zone unveiled, you feel like you're untying a thread of the plot, discovering secrets, and eventually forming bonds with characters and homunculi who serve as companions and even parts of your combat arsenal. This dynamism for someone coming from Hollow Knight is fantastic. Nothing is too relentless, and there's always something new waiting for you on the next screen. The narrative never forces itself on you, but it delivers precise doses of mystery. Lilac waking up with no memory, the quest to purify maddened homunculi, and each defeated boss revealing a small piece of the world's history and, perhaps, of the protagonist's own past. Even if the plot doesn't have the same lyrical weight as Hollow Knight, it is efficient, intriguing, and full of gentle twists, fulfilling its role of motivating the journey without overshadowing the pleasure of exploration and combat. In the accessibility department, Ender Magnolia puts on a show. Adjustable difficulty, enemies respawning only when resting, markers that point out secret items, plus all the quality of life bonuses the genre needs post-Hollow Knight. This breaks that barrier of exhaustive repetition, keeps the reward loop always active, and makes each playthrough something personal, as the pace can adapt to any style of player, from the hardcore to the more relaxed explorer. Nine Souls is one of those Metroidvania experiences that arrives shattering expectations and delivers its own vibe. especially for those who are used to Hollow Knight and want to explore a world as deep as it is brutal. What caught my attention right away is the so-called Tau Punk, a mix of cyberpunk, Eastern mythology, and ancestry that transforms every scene into something visually unique. The art direction is detailed, the hand-drawn animations create atmospheres ranging from stunning to disturbing, and the character and enemy designs reinforce a universe where technology and mysticism coexist in tense harmony. On the more personal side, there's no ignoring how Nine Souls places combat at the center of the experience. Unlike Hollow Knight, which values precision of movement and organic exploration, here everything revolves around the parry and the counterattack. It's not a Metroidvania for those who prefer to play reactively or passively. Every attack can be deflected and punished. The bosses are intense duels full of telegraphs and moments of pure tension. I confess it's one of the rare games where a good parry causes a genuine feeling of triumph, almost like winning a bloody chess match. The balance between story and gameplay is also one of the high points. You play as Yi, a Solarian who was betrayed by the other souls and must seek revenge on a journey filled with moral dilemmas. What's interesting is that the player's choices, whether sparing or destroying robots and artifacts, yield small achievements, but are never too punitive in terms of narrative. The plot doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, but it takes classic elements and presents them with unexpected depth, sometimes playing with themes of sacrifice, redemption, and the consequences of violence without sounding melodramatic. Now, combat is definitely the heart of Nine Souls. Everything is built around timing, parry, dash, strikes that explode into beautiful visual attacks. The bosses, each of the other souls, are challenges that will demand full attention, planning, and a certain mastery of movements. Even so, I didn't find it as punitive as the more traditional Souls-likes. The game urges you to learn patterns, take risks, and feel proud of each victory. It's immersive and, above all, addictive to master. Animal Well is a game that, in my most personal view, presents a truly different Metroidvania proposal, even for those who are fanatical about Hollow Knight and are looking for a breath of fresh air within the genre. Right at the start, what impresses is the delicacy of the pixel art visual. A dark, mysterious underground labyrinth, but full of small details, dynamic lighting, and a unique care in the atmosphere. Everything seems alive and reactive, from the movement of the vines to the sound effects that envelop the player and reinforce that feeling of constant discovery. The gameplay is based much less on combat and much more on exploration and puzzle solving. There are no traditional bosses here, nor intense confrontations like in Hollow Knight. The protagonist is a small, defenseless blob, and the world is filled with hostile or simply strange animals. The collected tools, like frisbees, slinkies, and bubble wands, end up becoming the character's powers, and it's through them that you discover the game's true potential. Every obstacle can be overcome with creativity, experimentation, and that old feeling that being curious pays off. The map is a show in itself. Huge, labyrinthine, and full of connected zones, it invites both backtracking and dispersed exploration. And the game never forces you to follow such a linear path, valuing those who like to revisit areas and hunt for hidden secrets, very much in the Hollow Knight style. Each area has its own identity: ghost dog zones, giraffe biomes, heron pools, among others. And although everything happens inside a well, the visual and ecological variety is admirable. The loop of returning to the same environments in search of new discoveries happens fluidly and addictively. One of the points I found most captivating are the environmental challenges. Everything depends on physics, the items themselves, and the player's logic, creating many unexpected solutions. Overcoming a difficult area or using a tool in a clever way gives a genuine sense of victory, something that, for me, compares to the satisfaction of defeating a difficult boss in Hollow Knight, but here without the use of brute force. The game rewards a keen eye and experimentation, and getting into this logic becomes a dangerous addiction. It's hard to stop before uncovering one more secret. Blasphemous 2 is, in my opinion, a true masterpiece of the Metroidvania genre, especially if you enjoy games that deliver a dense atmosphere, a heavy narrative, and sharp gameplay, all of which resonate strongly with what Hollow Knight fans look for when they want something darker and more visceral. The universe is a mixture of a religious nightmare and Baroque art. Each scene looks like a living painting where the grotesque and the beautiful walk together, and this makes exploration more than just collecting items or unlocking powers. Every time I advanced down a new corridor, the feeling was that of exploring a sick but fascinating world, full of secrets and strange characters that add to the lore and make everything even more engaging. The combat is perhaps the most striking point of Blasphemous 2. Unlike Hollow Knight, the game focuses on extremely distinct weapons from the beginning. You choose between a gigantic mace, a balanced sword, and 2 fast blades, each with its own rhythm, strength, and unique abilities. This brings a freshness to the progression because the weapons not only change strategies against enemies and bosses, but also serve to solve environmental puzzles and access new areas. It's the kind of system that makes you want to try everything, revisit locations, and test combinations of buffs, rosary beads, and prayers, customizing the penitent one to your playstyle. In the field of exploration, the game stands out for a gigantic interconnected map, full of alternative paths, shortcuts, surprising environments, and a lot of incentive for backtracking. A real treat for those who love getting lost in a Metroidvania and discovering a secret passage or hidden side that transforms the experience. The areas are so distinct from each other that, at many times, it feels like you're switching games. From inverted castles covered in wax to cursed villages and temples taken over by bizarre mutations, all with absurd detail and a chilling soundtrack. The bosses deserve special mention. They are challenges worthy of the best in the genre, requiring not only mastery of weapons and powers, but also attention to animations and patterns, which often border on insane. They're so creative. Each victory is, besides a difficulty spike, a moment of visual catharsis, not only because of the extremely violent executions, but for the reward in lore. I felt that, unlike Hollow Knight, the game bets on duels more focused on the acquired abilities that guarantee that taste of evolution whenever you return to the bosses. SteamWorld Dig 2 is a gem of the Metroidvania genre that offers a unique and lighter experience for those who like exploration and gradual progression. A great variation for those who enjoyed Hollow Knight, but are looking for something with a less intense and more relaxing pace. On paper, the game is about Dorothy, a mining robot who explores underground mines full of mysteries, curious enemies, and many valuable resources, all wrapped up in a charming and richly detailed steampunk atmosphere. What struck me most about the gameplay was the digging and collecting system, which creates an almost addictive feeling of going deeper and deeper, discovering new areas, and then returning to the surface to sell minerals and buy upgrades. This constant progression of technical evolution is one of the game's strong points, encouraging careful and strategic exploration of the maps to reach previously inaccessible areas. It's a Metroidvania that values curiosity and planning, without that constant pressure of combat. Speaking of combat, it's simple and fast. Almost a complement to exploration, not a main challenge. This leaves the focus on solving environmental puzzles and moving through the maps, which are intelligently designed with various secret zones and platforming challenges that break the monotony of mining. The pace here is different from Hollow Knight, which is more tense and focused on mastering combat skills. In SteamWorld Dig 2, the pleasure lies more in discovering and upgrading the character. Visually, the game embraces pixel art with a special charm, combining smooth animations and richly detailed scenarios, which give the town of El Machino and its underground mines a unique identity. The soundtrack accompanies this atmosphere, varying between quiet moments and more lively tracks as the exploration deepens. The steampunk setting gives a different feel from the dark and gothic worlds of Hollow Knight, something lighter and even optimistic, but still full of personality. From a technical and gameplay standpoint, SteamWorld Dig 2 delivers a polished game, with responsive controls, well-balanced progression, and a world that invites you to explore at your own pace, without rush or excessive pressure. For those who like indies focused on Metroidvanias, it's a title that deserves to be played even after feeling the strength of Hollow Knight.
The dangers
Guacamelee 2 is one of the most fun and colorful Metroidvanias I've experienced, especially for those who like Hollow Knight, but want something with a much lighter tone and full of humor. The game maintains the charisma of the first title in the series, with a vibrant art style inspired by Mexican culture, charismatic characters, and a narrative that mixes action with adorable jokes and parodies. The protagonist, Juan Aguacate, returns with new and old moves that make every combat and platforming section a dynamic and very fun experience. One of the things I enjoyed most was the combat system, which is simple at its core but extremely versatile thanks to a variety of unlockable moves and abilities, including the famous Frog Slam and the Eagle Hook, which helps not only in fights but in exploring the map. The mix of platforming and battles creates a non-stop pace, with precision challenges that require sharp reflexes but never become frustrating, because the checkpoints are generous and the abilities help overcome obstacles. The game's map is less interconnected and less open than Hollow Knight, more linear, but it offers varied challenges and secrets for those who enjoy exploration. Each area presents platforming puzzles and different enemies, and there's a natural progression that encourages the player to master new moves to advance and return to previously seen areas with new abilities. This relative simplicity can be a plus for those looking for a less complex, but still satisfying Metroidvania experience. For those who have played Hollow Knight and want something that captures the spirit of Metroidvanias with an approach full of personality, efficient combat, and smart humor, Guacamelee 2 is definitely a personal recommendation. It delivers a challenging, fun, and stylish adventure that can serve as a refreshment between darker and more complex games in the genre. Momodora Moonlit Farewell is one of those Metroidvanias that stands out for its balance between a satisfying experience and a straightforward pace, ideal for those who like Hollow Knight but are looking for something less dense and more focused on agile combat and classic-style exploration. The game puts you in the role of Momo Reynol, a priestess from Coho Village, on a mission to save her people after a calamity caused by a sinister bell toll that summons demons. The narrative is delivered simply, but manages to create an engaging atmosphere and an ethereal world full of details. In terms of gameplay, Moonlit Farewell maintains a traditional formula that seems made to please fans of the genre. Precise platforming, fluid combat, and progression through abilities like double jump, dash, and wall jump, which open up the map bit by bit, encouraging non-linear exploration and the search for secrets while facing increasingly challenging enemies. An interesting differential is the sigil system, which allows you to customize Momo's abilities, adapting the playstyle to your liking and adding an extra layer of strategy to battles and survival. Visually, the game impresses with its polished pixel art, from the atmospheric backgrounds to the characters and enemies, which have unique designs and some very fluid animations. This visual production helps create an atmosphere that, although less dark than Hollow Knight, still resembles a mysterious and magical world that you feel like exploring completely. The soundtrack also contributes, setting the mood well for each area and elevating the impact of boss battles. Speaking of bosses, they bring fair challenges that require you to master the controls and timing well without reaching frustrating levels, which makes the game accessible for newcomers and veterans of the style. The difficulty is well balanced, with the possibility of adjusting to easier or harder modes, which broadens its appeal. For those who like a challenge, there are options like Hardcore mode with permadeath, which adds that extra tension without losing focus on fun. What I liked most was the feeling of it being an elegant farewell to the series, delivering everything fans expected without a hitch, with responsive combat, precise platforming, and that cozy feel of a classic Metroidvania, but with its own identity. It's the type of game that pleases both those looking for a balanced challenge and those who want to get lost in an adventure full of pixelated charm. Iconoclasts is a Metroidvania that, in my experience, offers a refreshing alternative for those who knew Hollow Knight and are looking for something with a lighter tone and vibrant colors. But that doesn't lack in creativity, solid gameplay, and a captivating world. The game puts you in control of Robin, a rebel mechanic trying to survive in a world dominated by a rigid technocracy that controls a mysterious energy source called Ivory. The story has a lot of depth, addressing themes like oppression, freedom, and the protagonist's personal conflicts, all with a dash of humor and personality. In gameplay, Iconoclast stands out mainly for its dynamic and fluid combat. Robin uses a wrench that functions as a melee weapon, but there are also various tools like weapons that shoot electricity, grenades, and even a launcher that allows swapping places with enemies or objects, creating combat and puzzles with plenty of variety and strategy. Exploration is facilitated by unlockable abilities, allowing you to revisit old areas organically to progress and collect items that improve the character. The graphical and artistic detail is impressive, with colorful and expressive pixel art, which contrasts sharply with the darker, more monotonous look of Hollow Knight. Each area has its distinct palette and style, helping to create an inviting and even cheerful visual identity, which makes the hours of exploration very pleasant. The soundtrack is equally enjoyable, accompanying the levels with themes that vary between tense and calm, fitting the world's mood well. While Hollow Knight is famous for its high difficulty and dark world, Iconoclast bets on a balance between accessibility and challenge, with a more compact and less punishing map, facilitating progression and exploration without losing the classic Metroidvania tone. The narrative is more direct but no less impactful for it, featuring characters with strong personalities and a plot that gains layers as you advance. Iconoclast seems ideal to me for those who enjoyed Hollow Knight but want something less suffocating and more colorful, with gameplay that combines exploration, combat, and puzzle solving at a more accessible yet rewarding pace. It's a game that has identity and deserves to be played by fans of the genre looking for distinct experiences within the Metroidvania universe. Yoku's Island Express is a unique experience within the Metroidvania genre, mixing open-world exploration with one of the most unusual mechanics, pinball. Instead of directly controlling the character, you guide Yoku, a small postman beetle, using flippers to launch the ball around the island of Mokumana, acting as the pivot for movement and interaction with the environment. This fusion of platforming and pinball creates gameplay unlike anything I've ever played, and that is one of its biggest differentiators. The world built in Yoku's Island Express is a vibrant tropical island full of life, but with a mystery to be solved. The island's god has fallen into a disturbed sleep after an attack, and it's up to Yoku to awaken the tribes to restore peace. The setting is rich, with colorful scenery in different regions, from beaches to caves, all hand-painted with enormous charm. The atmosphere is cheerful, inviting, and with a soundtrack that matches the game's relaxed and adventurous vibe. The gameplay is intuitive but requires precision and patience. You don't jump or run in the traditional sense. You use flippers to propel the ball that carries Yoku, and this can be challenging, especially in sequences that require quick and accurate combinations to advance. Despite this, it's not overly punitive, and the checkpoint system helps to soften the attempts. For me, the mix of pinball and exploration worked very well, bringing a freshness to the Metroidvania genre. Visually, the game is a standout. The children's book-style art, with flawless drawings and delicate animations, turns every visit to the island into a pleasant experience for the eyes. The proximity to nature, the small details of the animals and plants, and the creatures' expressions give the game an almost poetic character. This contrasts sharply with the dark and melancholic tone of Hollow Knight, being in a much lighter and more welcoming vibe.